Hi there everybody, Loading Wi-Fi here, and today we're talking about a pretty interesting gun. This is the Gen 5 MOS Glock 17L. It has a Holosun SCS on top, and it also has Trijicon metal iron sights, because I replaced the target sights that this thing comes with. So what is it? What the heck is this thing? It is the long slide version of the Glock 17. So it is longer than the Glock 34. That is a 5-inch barrel. This is a 6-inch barrel. So it is longer than that, even. The reason it was introduced, this was Glock's first pistol that they introduced for competition shooting. The really long sight radius made it really, really good. And so that's what that intention was. Eventually, IDPA and USPSA introduced, I believe in response to this gun, a box that you had to fit a gun in for it to be legal. In USPSA, you can still use a gun if it doesn't fit into the box, just you're more limited in the categories you can choose. In IDPA, if a gun does not fit in the box, you cannot use it. This gun does not fit in the box, so it is legal in certain categories in USPSA, not at all in IDPA. So Glock introduced the Gen 4, 1-inch shorter barrel. That is legal in both. So that's why this exists, and that's why that existed. So, what are the differences between this and a normal 17, other than obviously the long barrel? It has a different slide release, a slightly nicer slide release, slightly nicer mag release there. It has the minus disconnect in the trigger, which means a slightly lighter trigger. And I believe that is it. Oh, and there's a bunch of relief cuts on the inside of the slide because the slide is meant to weigh the same as a 17 slide, so that way you can use a 17 recoil spring. So this has a bunch of relief cuts and then uses the stock 17 recoil spring. In what way is it different than the old 17L? Because that was a thing. The old 17L had a cut in the slide. This has relief cuts on the inside. That had a big cut on the top of the slide, essentially through the slide. This also has the normal Gen 5 upgrades over, previous gens. It also, compared to normal 17s, came with plastic target sights. I have since swapped those out for Trijicon steel sights, so that's what that is. Also, Holosun SCS on there. So this is a gun, and you've maybe seen the title. This is a gun that I really wanted to like, but I've had a lot of issues with. It's fairly new to me. It's only a couple months old, but I've shot maybe 1,500 rounds through it. Probably about half of that was with irons, and about half of it was with the Holosun SCS that is on there now. Included in those 1,500 rounds is a USPSA match the other day, so I have had the opportunity to use this as Gaston Glock would have intended, as a competition pistol. So the process that I've gone through with this gun, I got it, worked fine. I tested it out before putting the red dot on it. It worked fine, but it was slightly sluggish. Put the red dot on, and I think that was just enough extra weight that it didn't work with certain ammo then. Talked to Glock about it. They said a number of different things, none of which were very helpful. Sleuthed around on the internet. They were saying all kinds of different things. I'll save all of the different things that I've tried because I tried a lot and it would be a huge time waster to go over them. But some of them are, took the optic off to see if the screw on the right side was too long, so I replaced it with a shorter screw. Then I learned that that isn't a thing with MOS Glocks, just custom milled Glocks, because the MOS Glock, whatever, the extractor, I think it's the extractor that the screw would impinge on. They have a channel or something, I don't know. I eventually, after trying all these things, including an aftermarket recoil spring that also didn't work, that was a 15-pound recoil spring versus the 17-pound that's stock with Glock. I heard that has helped people. I heard essentially that this is a bit of a tight tolerances gun for a Glock, so it might just require some break-in. So I shot a number of rounds with just the iron sights. Great shooter with irons, but we'll get there. Put the red dot back on, worked better, but now I'm having still some issues. Some of it I think might be a stacking issues thing, of some limp wristing on my part, some of it being weaker ammo. Because what I've heard is that I've never had a problem limp wristing pistols in the past, but I've heard that if you have this extra long slide, which should be the same as the 17 slide, but kind of isn't, if you have this extra long slide, plus you're using weak target ammo, it becomes really easy to limp wrist. And the reason I think that, or one of the reasons I think that, is because I was having very few malfunctions, maybe one every 200 rounds, so, not like very, very few, but not a lot. And they were all failures to feed, by the way. So I was having very, very few, and then I start doing one-handed drills where my recoil mitigation is a lot worse, and I'm not really shooting one-handed hardly ever, so I'm not very experienced. And all of a sudden, I'm having a bunch of malfunctions, the same failures to feed. So to me, what that says is it's probably just really easy to limp wrist, and that's what I'm doing. But I'm also a little suspicious because I was having all these incredible issues initially that were part of the break-in, so I'm not really sure. Also, this is all, some ammo has worked better than others. I don't know. I don't know at this point. I know I have two types of ammo that work well with it, Blazer 115 and PPU 124. And I think what I'll do is if I'm just plinking away at the range, I'll use whatever. And if there's a malfunction every 200 rounds, there's a malfunction every 200 rounds. But if I'm going to a tournament, for example, then I will use the nice ammo that I know will work. So, bit of a process. That's why I say I want to love this gun, because I'm going to get into how well it shoots. But I want to preface that with it's been a total pain to get to this point. And I'm sure some user error has factored in here, but I've owned a lot of other guns. This hasn't been an issue with other guns. This hasn't been an issue with other Glocks. So what I think it is, with the limp wristing specifically, which I have a feeling is what this is. I ordered another stock recoil spring to see if that makes a difference, but I think it's probably just really easy to limp wrist with 115 grain low power ammo. So that's what I think it is. Anyways. Now that we've gone through that whole process, now on to what I think of the gun outside of the reliability. So again, I'm going to say a lot of good things, but keep that reliability in the back of your head this whole time because it's super annoying. So, first of all, with irons, it really is a nice shooter. It really, really, really is a nice shooter. It's super easy to make tight groups by my standards. It's super easy to make quick shots by my standards. The USPSA match I did was with the red dot, not with the irons. But I think if you were going to use irons in USPSA, I think this would be an excellent gun to do so with. They're just so good. They're so nice. I cannot say enough good about those irons. One little caveat is if you get new iron sights, it tends to shoot a little bit high. And you can't really change that. And I think the reason is because of the long slide. With the target sights, if you leave those on the gun, you can adjust them. I broke mine, unfortunately, but you can adjust those. So another upside is it is MOS. It's optics ready. If you want to pop a optic on there, go for it. There's been much said about Glock's MOS system, about maybe not being so good. I have completely dodged that issue by just going with a HoloSun SCS, which this isn't a HoloSun SCS video, but if you want my extremely short verdict on the HoloSun SCS, it works good. I like it. And it's probably good because of the low weight, too, which will help not compound any of those issues you might have. Really, I mean, that's between the nice trigger, between the nice familiar controls, between those iron sights, and it has a very pleasant recoil impulse. It's not low recoiling. I think when I got this gun, I was thinking it was going to be recoil very little. It's not that it recoils very little, it's that it has a very slow and manageable recoil impulse. It's just different. It's really interesting. It's something I think that requires you to shoot one in person. Unfortunately, I don't know how well I can communicate it over a video, but it just shoots really well. It's all of my best groups come from this gun. It's so easy. It's just comedically easy. So now let's get on to some of the bad outside of the reliability. The main thing is that with the backup irons, you know, the target sights are plastic, so you might want to replace them, and then your irons might be shooting a little bit high. But that's a bit of a nitpick. I think the only other negative is it's hard to find holsters. I have a G-code holster for this. What you can do is you can get a 17 holster and ask them to leave the bottom open, and this will fit in that. Then it'll stick out, but it'll fit. So ask them to leave the bottom open. It costs like an extra $10. I think it's worth it. You're probably not going to want to concealed carry this, so concealed carry holsters doesn't matter, but you will have more limited availability. One trick though is if you can find pretty much any open bottom holster for a Glock 17, it'll fit this. So obviously, you know, with whatever generation is compatible. The other negative, and this is a negative compared to the old 17L, is I haven't heard of these reliability issues with the old 17L, and I honestly think a big reason for that was the fact that they had the big slide cut, and now it's just those internal relief cuts. I think they just, you know, I can understand why you'd want to get rid of the big slide cut. It makes the slide a little bit less durable. There's room for stuff to get in, but I think leaving the big slide cut would have been the call, because when I was doing my research, I've heard these reliability issues specifically with that 115 grain ammo. That seems somewhat common with the 17L. I don't think I just got a lemon, and I'm not even sure how much of it is my gun being broken versus, as I said, it's just what the 17L is. So I haven't heard those issues with the old gun, and I think it's because of the slide cut. So what has my experience with the gun been, you know, outside of that reliability stuff? Well, I've gone to the range a bunch with it. I've just plinked around with it. It's been really easy. And then that USPSA match, it really was exactly like Gaston intended, I'm sure. I felt very confident, very controlled, very comfortable with the gun. I placed badly because I'm not very good, but it had nothing to do with the gun itself. It really, you know, if anything, it felt like I had the ability to speed up more than I was going, but I was so used to going the speed that I normally go that, like, you know, I was hitting almost all A's, and realistically, if I can go quite a bit faster and some more Charlies, that's okay. It really felt controllable. There was some difficult long-range shots as well, and I felt very nervous about those because I'm, again, not the best shooter in the world, but this thing just nailed them easy. It was two metal, like the falling metal targets. I don't know why I'm blanking on their names right now, but two of the small falling metal targets at 25 yards, and I just dinged them really easy. First two tries. Didn't even feel like I had to go all that slow. So really great gun when it's working well. I'm actually, now that I'm talking about the positives, getting myself so hyped up, I'm not even caring as much about the reliability. And that's honestly the duality of this gun for me, is that I've had so much frustration with it, but when it's working, oh man, it's just a blast. And it helps too that it's a cool, interesting piece. It's a conversation starter. If you care about that, you know, as I said, I'm a handgun hipster. I like things that are cool and interesting. Maybe you just like what shoots best, so you don't care. But for me, that is a plus. So would I recommend it? And who would I recommend it for? I think that gets into the hardest part of this for me. I think there's one group that I would wholeheartedly recommend it for very easily, and that's if you're somebody who either always buys or has a large stockpile of more powerful, hotter ammo, NATO ammo, that type of stuff. If you have that ammo, this gun's going to be awesome, and it's going to work well. And don't try to run it with 115 grain unless you really need to. Run it with that hotter stuff, and it's going to be awesome. You're going to have a great time. If you have a big stack of 115 grain, which I really do, I'm a little bit, more hesitant. I honestly don't think I can recommend it, unfortunately. As much as I've been glazing at these past few minutes, I think there are other guns that do, nearly as well without having to deal with all that stuff. If you want to stay with Glock, honestly, a 34 might not be a bad idea. It's still a bit of a long slide one. I think it's more popular anyways. You're going to be able to use it in an IDPA unlike this. And I've heard a lot less of those issues with the Glock 34. So I would look at that gun. I'd consider this gun, again, if you are comfortable trying to figure out that reliability stuff. If you are somebody who, I think the one person that this gun is really perfect for is if you want to do long distance pistol shooting with iron sights. I think this gun is great for that. I've heard, I honestly wouldn't recommend this as a home defense gun because the fact that it's on the edge of reliability, even if I'm using ammo I really like, I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. Maybe in 5,000 rounds, it fully breaks in, I learn how to shoot without limp wristing better, and then I feel confident. But at this point, 1,500 rounds in, I can't recommend it for that. Maybe as a bear defense gun, because bear loads of 9mm would be really hot. Not that you'd want 9mm for bear anyways, so I guess that's a bit of a moot point, So I guess not even really as a bear defense gun. I think it's a thing where it has only a couple niche purposes, It has only a couple things that it's really, really good at, like that long-distance iron sight shooting, but a lot of things that it's just fun for and just good for, so... My verdict, if you have that hot ammo and you think it appeals to you, go for it. But I would really caution anybody else. I would probably go with the 34 over this. I might even look at other brands. If you really like Glock, go for the 34 probably. If you like other brands, maybe look at other brands. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to my rambly, conflicted view on this gun. And have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.